This is for EVSP 560 course project, a human health risk assessment. It's entitled Climate Change and Excessive Heat Exposure. The narration speaker is Ms. Anne Alexandria, Master of Public Health. The research question is, can climate change cause excessive heat exposure? What qualitative data from a literature review result from search terms climate change, excessive heat exposure in peer-reviewed journal articles? Search in the APUS library. Searching for answers using search terms climate change and excessive heat exposure together resulted in the following 10 peer-reviewed research articles. Major outcomes: climate change was discussed in one of the randomly chosen articles, with the cause of excessive heat exposure greenhouse gas emissions or air pollution. One other article discusses the health effects of exposure to excessive heat for firemen related to fire and lack of air conditioning among the disadvantaged population. The other 8 articles include worldwide populations. The research is the health effects of the excessive heat to include more hospitalizations. Excessive heat exposure results in higher hospitalization statistics and worsened disease outcomes worldwide in all populations. The columns at the top are asking what is the specific title of the peer-reviewed journal article. The second one is, what is the environmental risk? The third is, who is at risk and where is the population that is at risk? The fourth is, what are the health effects of the exposure? And the last column would be the reference citations. In the first row, you'll see the first article, which indicates global warming and greenhouse gas emissions are the result of climate change. And you can see what the adverse health effects are right there. And the second row is excessive heat exposure from fire and lack of air conditioning among low-income groups. And then you can see the primary respiratory disorder is the health effect. Row 3 is the effect of excessive heat exposure on diabetic persons with diabetes in Brazil among the elderly result in hospitalizations. So essentially diabetes and excessive heat exposure result in more hospitalizations. The fourth row is excessive heat exposure worsens after 4 days of exposure, and the results are include cardiovascular symptoms, heat diseases, circulatory diseases, respiratory diseases, heat stroke, acute renal failure, disorders of fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Row 5 is the heat-related illness in vulnerable populations in Phoenix, Arizona, result in over 50% hospitalized. And this would be based on neighborhoods that are vulnerable. Row 6 is the heat stress in Rhode Island from 2005 to 2012 resulted in emergency department admissions with an increase in morbidity and mortality. Row 7 is heat waves cause heat stress in Charlottesville, Virginia. You can see by the table here. And row 8 is heat-related illness in Florida in 15 to 35-year-olds. Includes males from rural counties with emergency room admissions from heat illness. Row 9 is excessive heat is in the forecast worldwide, and healthy fit males are requiring more thermal forecasts to prevent heat illness. And row 10 was a major research study done in 14 states and 6 regions that determined heat stress illness is caused from lack of air conditioning, working outside, and long distance to medical care. The research gaps are the small sample. Term climate change is ambiguous since excessive heat exposure is a climate change from cooler weather. So the cause of climate change is thought to be air pollution, yet there are other variables. So there are a few research gaps. The conclusion is, in a random small sample, excessive heat exposure is a health problem that results in hospitalization worldwide in all populations.